Okay. Okay, and then just go back to the settings and behavior and make sure that I can run it manually here. All right, so it doesn't like this. Let's see what's the issue here. Oh yeah, I was supposed to do this. Okay, so it does 3. You can also pass this directly inside here. You don't have to define an add function. What you can do is you can say, you know, n1, n2, and then you can do, you know, n1 plus n2. So I've passed the callback function directly inside it. So I don't need this actually. This is also another way of doing this. We pass the 2 numbers and we pass the functionality to operate on it, right? Again, callback functions are this is an arrow function, right? Which I use as a callback function. And arrow functions, as you know, it's pretty simple to read. I'll pass n1 n2, and it returns me n1 plus n2, right? So this arrow helps you kind of visualize that. So this is pretty good. Okay. Any questions so far? All right, let's also look at the other example where we had sort. Sorry, not sort. We had what was that? We did map, filter, and reduce, right? So if you have an array, right, I can apply map function to it, and then I can pass inside the value, and then I can say multiply this by value. Right? This can be anything. I don't know, n or val, whatever you call it, right? This is basically each element, and what this does is if I format this, right? And if I console the result, and run this, I would get this, right? So previously we were doing this. We were create a like function called double or something, right? Let double equal to, we pass value, and then the arrow function would double the value, right? And then we would just pass this double inside here, if you remember, right? But instead, you can just pass this directly inside here. It's the same thing, right? You don't have to define the function and then pass it in. You can just pass it in if you're doing only one time, right? So this works as well. It does exactly the same thing. So it doubles every single value. So map takes an array of specific size, and it returns an array with modified values, right? That's why it's called map. We are mapping array value to a new array. So we are essentially taking this, and then we are creating another array. This would be like 2, 4, and 6, right? Filter takes an array, and then it returns a smaller array, right? I can filter out, let's say 3, right? So this is filter. So this is map. This is filter, right? And then reduce takes an array and returns a number. I can add all of these or do something else, but it returns a single number. So this would be like a 6, right? Add all the numbers in the array. Okay. So yeah, this is a callback function. We're going to be using this a lot when we do React. Again, you don't have to think about it too much, but just remember the syntax that you pass function into function, and that you basically pass a functionality or what to do with it, right? And then this map, reduce, and filter are built-in functionality inside JavaScript to do specific things. Okay. Okay. So I think we can start with React. I think this is more fun. You're gonna so far we using console log to print something out, right? But we're gonna do more than that now, to build actual applications that you can show off to your friends. Say, hey, I built this, right? So for that, let's open something called Code Sandbox. I'm just gonna pass this. I'm just gonna type that in the chat. Code sandbox.com. Oh, .io. If you open that, it will open something like this. Again, it's a similar concept. Flex layout. That's a good point. Let's go through it. Let's go through it next time. Let's go through it next time. I remember last time I think we did the flex layout first before doing this. Let's go through it next time for a couple of reasons. I want you to jump into the React part, which is JavaScript, and then we can do something and we can say, okay, now this is an ugly, user interface. We can make it better using Flex. Okay. So basically what Rahim says, Flex layout. So now we learned JavaScript. Web pages have 3 elements, right? You have an HTML, you have JavaScript, and then you have CSS. The CSS is basically styling your web page. How many of you know CSS? Have done some CSS? Oh, okay, tiny bit. Okay. All right. So we'll spend a little bit more time next time on CSS. So, HTML is basically your templates, which gets represented in a web page. CSS is basically making things, arrange things. So let's say if I want to move stuff around, I want to change the background color, if I want to highlight something or add a border or something, all of this is done by CSS. And then flex layout is something that allows you to arrange things neatly, right? Like here I have these elements, right? They are arranged nicely in this tabular form that is done by, most probably it's done by flex layout. There are other ways to do it, but flex is one way of dealing with it. And then obviously JavaScript is the heart of everything, which makes things more dynamic. Okay, so yeah, let's do flex next time. Thank you for reminding me. I was like, something was missing, but I think we're just gonna start with React first this time. We're gonna go slower, so you can we can grasp more, and then with combining of this and then CSS would make things much more clear. Okay, so once you open this, you can go here and then click on something called create, and then it will give you multiple options. And I would suggest to open this React one. Okay. Let me know if you're having any trouble. Once you do that, you would see three things here. There'll be a file system here. There'll be a JavaScript, like app.js, which you can open. You can open any file from here, right? It shows up here. And this is what it renders, right? Which means if I have app.js here, I can change things and then this gets impacted, right? So here right now it says hello code sandbox. Instead, I can say hello class. And as soon as I do that, you can see it changed hello class here. Okay, are you able to do that? Let me know once you are able to do that, so then we can move forward. Okay, cool. All right, so now let's understand what this is. What is React? So again, the reason I chose React, you can do the same thing in raw JavaScript as well here, right? I can add HTML page, I can add CSS here, and I can add JavaScript here, right? And it would render same thing. So for example, if I take this and copy this and then put it here, all right, and I'm just going to remove the console part here. And then run. Okay, you can see it renders the same thing. This has also CSS, basically this class name, which we haven't learned, but don't worry about it. But it does the same thing, right? And then I can add some JavaScript, but connecting them together, right? If I add any JavaScript and I want to run some JavaScript, it in a raw JavaScript, it becomes very difficult. You know, you need to connect all three things. React, in a way, connects everything in a smoother manner. It also reduces the complexity of managing all three. It does everything in one, in a way. Okay. It also makes things so flexible that you can build very complex. So for small application, if I do this like this, it's fine. But if I want to build a giant game, JavaScript, you have to write a lot of JavaScript, and you need to be really good at it. But with React, it has built-in functionality that lets you do things much smoothly. So that helps you build this kind of application, you know, very easily. I can build, you know, a web application like Facebook, things like that, right? With much ease. If I were to do something same thing in JavaScript, it will be quite cumbersome. Okay. In a like when you go to work, work for a company, they'll be using React. They won't be using pure JavaScript like this. But it's important to know JavaScript because React is JavaScript. So it's a layer of JavaScript that they built on the top of it to make things much smoother. Okay. So let's understand. There are a lot of things going on here. Right now, you're just seeing like simple HTML page right here, which is nice. But I can choose some stuff that it can do, and which the dynamic part of it, which is really great. So let me write some code, and then we're gonna build a counter, and then I'm gonna explain what's going on inside. So that would make much more sense because this is pretty simple, right? So in React, there is something called state. Okay, so let's build a something called counter. A counter would be a button which allows you to increment the counter, and then there'll be a number that gets incremented. So if I say plus plus plus, it will increment that number 3 times. So if it's a 1, then it would become to 2 and then 3, right? So now we can see something very dynamic. So what I would do here is, first of all, I would import something called state. And again, I will explain all of this, what it is from React. Okay. So we need to have some sort of functionality that allows us to manage state. What is a state? State is let's say this is a static web page, which means nothing is changing here, right? But let's say if I have something that changes, then I need to remember what was there before and what changed. So I can actually manage that updates on it. I can go back to the previous state, and things like that, right? So that's why we need something called state. And this is a built-in functionality for React, which means you don't have to do much. It just lets you build things, uh, by using this use state. Okay. All right. And then within this app here, I'm going to build some state. So there's something called counter. Counter is our state, right? So you need, when you build a state, you need 2 things. You need the actual state, and then you need to way to modify it, right? So if I have a number, I need that number, and I need a way to modify it. So how do I modify the number? I can have a setter called set counter equal to use state. Again, a lot of things will look kind of foreign, but I'll explain what's happening inside. And inside we'll pass a number which allows us to set the initial state. Okay, you're going to be using this a lot, so you just have to memorize some of this stuff. So here you have a counter, which is a number that allows us to show this on a web page. This allows us to change it. Anytime I want to click on something, I can change this number on the screen. And then this is the initial state, which means counter is 0 when I start. Okay. And then use state is, as I said, it's a functionality that comes with React. So we are just using it. Okay. Okay. So anything that is dynamic on the web page, you have to use curly brackets. So what I will do here is use curly brackets, open and close. This represents that there is something dynamic here, which means something will change. Okay. And you can use this counter inside here. All right. So now you can see this counter, which we initialize as 0, right? It's showing up here. I'm going to actually remove this H2 here for now. And then I'm going to write a button. Don't worry if you don't get it right now. I'll explain to you what this is. And then I'm just going to write plus. Okay, so this is how you write button, because we haven't done a lot of HTML. So it will be a little bit confusing, right? So we get a button, which is this. If I click on it, I want this number to be incrementing, go up, right? Okay. We have created a button. We haven't actually defined a functionality to update a button, but we have this thing called set counter. Set counter basically is a function that let us update the counter. Okay. So usually in a button, there is an event called on click. So if I click on this button, right, there is an event called on click. And I have to define this event. And this is where I'm going to, I can actually build this event here or as a function called add. And then all I have to do is I can use a set counter and I can take the older counter. So I can say the counter plus 1, right? I take the existing counter and I add 1 to it. So every time I click on this button, it will call this add function. You see, there is a button and has an on click event. So we haven't actually looked at events as what event is, but I'll explain in a minute. What I wanted to do is show you the power of it and then explain what all the pieces are, right? So that, if you see the result, you know what's going on. Okay. So you have a button. If I click on it, it has an on click event. It says, whenever I click on it, call this add function. And again, anything that is dynamic, you use curly brackets, right? So I've created this function called add, and inside it sets the counter. It takes the existing counter, which is 0, and it adds 1 to it. That's it, right? So that's all it is. So if I click on it, you see it becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you have a real application. If I were to do this in a pure JavaScript, it would be at least 4 to 5 times the code, right? But here, thanks to React, it becomes very easy. Any questions on this one? I'm going to explain to you, obviously, what's going on, but any question on this one? Okay. Cool. So let me explain what's going on here. So you have two things, import. Let's first look at the import. We haven't actually looked at import because it is part of JavaScript, but it's you need an integrated environment to run this. But import is basically if I wanna use something, for example, I have these 3 things, right? Let's say if I wanna import some CSS here, right? This environment automatically imports stuff, so you don't need to do it because it's the way it's designed. It's like that, right? But in this environment, I have an app.js, I have a CSS which is separate, right? So importing, if I want to use something, I would import it. So let's look at this style. So this is style, and then when I import it, it imports the style here. So where is the style is used? You see this class name app. Basically, those who don't know much CSS, I can apply style directly inside the element. So let's say if I want to apply style to this H1, right? H1 is I should say, it's a specific tag. So if you can see the size of it, right? H1 means this big size, a specific size. If I change this to H2, it will be a smaller, you see, smaller. but H1 is probably the big one, right? And you can look it up, all the HTML tags that are available. So this way you don't have to style it. You just use this tag H1, which has specific size, right? Um, so that's that. But if I want to change the color of this, let's say 22, I want to change it to, let's say, a red color, right? One way to do it is in CSS, you can apply style directly inside here. Style equal to, and then I can say color is red. Oh, actually, my bad. I can do it. That applies here, but it's a little different in this. Sorry, it's a little different in the React environment. So let's say do it here. So for example, style equal to color red, and then I have to run it again, obviously. Right? So it becomes red here. In React, you have to do something like this because anything, you have to do style equal to color red. I think you have to have a double curly brackets because the dynamic nature of it. Hold on. React style tag, because I usually don't use style attribute a lot. So let's look at it. Yeah, this is style tag. Okay, so oh yeah, okay, my bad. So what you have to do is uh, actually, where'd the window go? Oh, right here. You have to do this. It's kind of a little different, but yeah. And then you can see the red is here, right? So React, you have to do a little bit different than what you do in this. So here you would do this way: style equal to color red. Here you have to pass it as a JavaScript object. You can't simply just do color, so you have to do it this way. But if you want to use it as a CSS, then what I would do is instead of this, I can create a class. So I can say class name equal to, I can call it like H1 or something, right? Which basically anywhere there's a H1 tag, use this style. And then I would go inside the style.css, and all the classes are used like this, H1. And then I can say color is red. Okay, and this also works. See, it's much cleaner. So I've defined a CSS. I named it H1. So dot means a class. Okay, so dot H1, and then I can put color, and then it would automatically apply here to this one. So let's say if I have another H1, and let's say blah. This one will also be, this one by default is not, it's black, right? But if I just add class name equal to H1, which I define in the other file, it becomes red, right? So just to show you that this importing the style that brings in all of the styles in this app.js. So this allows us to actually, you know, use so I don't have to do style like how we do in HTML. I can just use the class name, so it's much cleaner. So whenever I use H1, if I want to know what's applied here, I can go here and look at it. Right. I can actually add a border. So I can say um, border, and then let's add blue border, 1 pixels, and solid. Okay. And then whenever I use this H1, you can see it's, it adds that border here, right? So now you're learning a lot of HTML, CSS, JavaScript all mixed, right? Because if you want to build an application, you need to learn all three. But it's not a rocket science, believe me. So yeah, so that's this line. Any question on this line? I'm gonna go line by line so you understand what's going on, right? Because I want you to understand this many lines, and that gives you a lot of fundamentals. React is not very complex. Okay, as long as you understand all these tools that are being presented here, you can do a lot of things with it. Okay. So this line basically saying import style.css from this folder here. So dot means whichever dot slash means whichever folder you are in, which is in the source folder, and then there is a style.css. So say import all of it, which brings in all the functionality, H1 app and all that stuff, right? And then I have an app class name and I have an H1 class name. So it all applies automatically. Okay. So that's that. This one we already looked at, right? Import use state. This you just have to memorize it, right? We are basically grabbing this use state from React. What is React? React is a package. There is actually a folder called a file called package.json here. Okay, and this is where a lot of things are defined. And there is something called dependency. So when I build this project, it all automatically got the React because we said we want the React project. So it got the React. And you can also grab third-party packages. A lot of packages are built in React, so you can just use them here as well. But don't worry about it if you don't understand it for now. Just one thing at a time. Once you understand some certain things, you can build a lot of things. Okay, so that's that. So in order to define state, for like this 0, right, which now has become dynamic, we are using this use state. Okay, let's look at this function, app function. What does this app function really means? Export default function app. There are a lot of words inside. So function we already know, right? We can build a function like this, function app, right? We can build a function app. So what is export default means? Default means export the whole thing. There's only one thing inside this, export one thing. And then what is export? Export is basically, how we have import? If I want to use something in here, I have to import it. And if I want somebody else to use this, I have to export that, right? Which means if anybody use this app.js in their project, they automatically get this function app. Okay. So if I want to know where it is being used, there's an index.js, and you can see that app is imported here. So because it's exported there, I can import it here. And then what's being done here is like when you build the HTML page, it automatically, we are including it, so it automatically renders. So my initial HTML page is completely blank, and then it adds this app.js inside. Okay. You never have to modify all of this, so don't worry about it. You just work in this app.js environment only. But I'm just showing you what is the meaning of it, so you can relate to all these functions, right? The counter is, as I said, this counter, right? This number. It has two things: the counter itself, and then how to change that counter, which is a function equal to use state. And this is the initial value for this. Okay. Add function, all it does is, it takes it calls a set counter with a new value. So it takes the existing counter and adds one to it, right? Okay, Latifa asked, are imports in order when used or imported as you need them? Yes. Yes. So the cool thing about import and export is I can build my own thing. Okay, I can build my own thing. Let's actually do that. So I'm going to build my own thing, and I'm going to show you how it works. It's a good question. So let's say, just for sake of it, I'm just going to build an element, a very simple element. Okay, as an import. So here I'm going to create a file. So I'm going to click on here, or not here actually. Here, and then I don't know why it creates an inside and outside here, but anyway, I'm just going to call it test.js, right? And I'm just going to put this inside the source. So inside the source, I have test.js, and all I have to do is export default, and then I'm going to create a function called test, right? And this function, all it is going to do is return some HTML. So let's return this. So instead of this blah, I'm just going to do it inside this tag here. Okay. Oh, this is supposed to be regular, this kind of text. Oh, I forgot the function. My bad. That's why it's complaining. Okay. That's all I need to do. And then inside the app.js, I'm going to say import test. Because it's a default import, it import the whole thing. So I can say test from, remember, slash is this folder, which means I have this test available. Okay. Now I can use this test. So instead of this blah, all I have to do is test. Not text, test. Right? That's it. And you can see the blah is showing up here. So if I change this to blah to whatever, right? You can see it's showing up here, right? So this way I can break things down. If I just use this over and over again, you see, it's pretty neat, right? So this is how you can actually build your own component and then reuse it many different times if you want to do that way, right? But yeah, so this is, it's a good question, right? Whichever place you build, you have to export that. And whenever you want to use somewhere that component, you have to import it. And import syntax is import whatever you want to import. If it's a default, it's just a one thing from the location, which is if it's in the same folder, then you say dot slash and then the file name. Okay. All right. Now okay, so now that you have some idea what it is, I know you're still confused a little bit because it's a lot of information. At least in JavaScript part, you were getting uh, because it's a one thing, right? Here you have a lot of things going on, but I think things will start making sense once you start coding this. So I want you to do a couple of things. First, change the counter. Let's do. I'm just gonna put some comment here. Change the color of the counter to blue. Okay, so I want this to be blue. And then instead of increment, add another, well, just let's keep this add, but when I click on it, it actually subtracts it. So by clicking on plus button, the counter goes down by 1, right? Okay. What does it mean? So if I click on it, it should go -1, -2, and so on and so forth, right? Instead of plus. So how can we do that? You figure it out. I think it's much easier. You just figure out where to change it, right? To do that. I'll give you maybe, I don't know, 5 minutes. Let's play around with it. Let me know once you're done. And if you don't try to understand everything, just figure out where this plus minus plus is happening and then change it to minus, right? For this one, you need to add, if you haven't added the class name, you need to add a class name and then change it in the style. That's it. All right. I'll be back. I'm just going to get some water. Yeah, feel free to ask questions if you didn't get it right. All right. Um, how's everyone doing? Okay, cool, cool. Yeah. I know it's kind of funny that you have an add function, but it subtracts, but yeah. I didn't want to create a new function. That's why I said, okay, easiest way is to change it, right? And you can see how easy that is in React here, right? So all you have to do here is minus, that's it, right? And then that allows you to subtract. Anytime if you get stuck, you can just always refresh this. Okay, so that helps. In order to change the color, you have added a class name here, h1. And remember, because styles are imported here, I'm going to just change it in here. I can just make it blue. I just remove this border, which is quite ugly, right? Any question here? Okay. So this is in nutshell, um, how you do React. Um, React is basically a mix of everything like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All the HTML stuff you do return, right? And that, returns. It's almost like as I said, it's almost like you can build a web page by breaking the web page into smaller things, which actually makes much more sense. Um, for example, if you look at this page here, right? I have this 3 items, right? I don't need to write 3 different times. I can build this small component and then just use it just how I did the test component, right? And that's the, that's the best way to deal with it. Let me show you also another thing. So once you have a state, which means you can use it anywhere. And if I just do this, right? You see, it updates everywhere. So this counter, whenever it gets updated, so when I click on add, well, let's put back add because this looks, subtraction and add function doesn't look good. So if I click on add, you see, it's like a synchronized update. You see the power of this tool, right? It makes things dynamic so smooth. Once you define this state counter, wherever I use this counter within this curly bracket, which means it's a dynamic thing. Curly brackets, which means dynamic, right? Functions are also dynamic. That's why I use curly brackets here. Anything static, which not going to change, you put it without curly brackets, but everything else you put inside the curly brackets. So this, allows to do this kind of stuff, which is pretty cool, right? So what it does is when I click on this button, it says update this set this counter equal to counter plus 1. So it takes the value of the counter, which is previous value. So let's say right now it's 48, right? So it's going to take add 1, which is 49. And then when it's set is actually, think of set is like a repaint of the screen. Okay. It says, okay, go and repaint the screen with a new counter. So my new counter is counter plus 1, which is 49. So I say find everywhere there is a counter and updates this value. So it goes here and updates all the counters to this new value, 49, right? So if I do this, it does that, and it's so smooth, right? A lot of websites are, nowadays, pretty much all major websites are built using React. Um, uh, One of and the reason I wanted to learn if you're gonna be if you want to get a job in this field. Let's say, what is a popular website for job? What is it called? Glassdoor, right? Is it a Glassdoor? Oh, let's look it on Indeed. I think Indeed wants you to usually register and all that stuff. Okay. If I just say React developer and throughout the US, let's see how many jobs there are. There are 34,000 jobs available in this field. If I just put San Jose or something, let's say, 1,348 jobs available. And you always see like JavaScript React, right? Because it is React is JavaScript. Okay. And then pay, as I said, pays pretty well as well. Let's say, for example, this is, I don't know if they put a pay scale here. No. But these are contracts. But I mean, even if you get contracts, it's still pretty good. Like you can see this one as a senior, it's like 133,266,000. Right. So after you learn this in this class, if you probably have to do some more practice, build your own project and things like that. But I'll give you everything about the fundamentals of React that actually can get you in the door. Okay. Um, any questions? Okay. Um, let's do some more on this one. Let's create two buttons. One increments and one decrements. So all we have to do is, let me just remove all this stuff here. This is a single state. So let's say button. I'm going to create another button. I'm just going to copy paste here, right? So this button is going to subtract, and I'm going to call it sub and subtract. And then in a function, I have to create a function called sub, set counter. And then again, this one should be counter -1, right? So if I click on plus, it does plus. If I do minus, it does minus. So simple. See? Okay. All right. Let's actually practice a little bit of CSS, because I feel that once you know a little bit of HTML, it will help you. So I just wanted to give you like this overview of this before we delve. And we're gonna do a lot more in here, right? But this kind of gives you an idea of what we're gonna do next. But in terms of CSS, let's dive here in the code pen again. And let me refresh this. And this time we're going to only use HTML and CSS, no JavaScript. Okay. So I want you to create an H1 tag. And then I'm just going to put H1 tag. So if I look at visually, I know which one it is, right? And I have an H1 tag. Similarly, I can create H2 and H3 tags. Okay. And run this. Okay, so as you can see, this tags. If you want to know more about this, you can actually go. I'm going to share some resource, HTML tags. Let's look at a cheat sheet. This may be very useful. Now there are tons of tags here. Is there an H1 tag here somewhere? H1. Oh, right here. Yeah, I'm gonna share this cheat sheet with you just in case if you want to build some HTML stuff, you can use this. So usually when you start your HTML page, you have HTML tag, head and body and all that stuff, which we actually skipped, right? Some of the most important tags are, div. Div is called all-purpose tag, right? It's like it does have some meaning, but it's just an all-purpose tag. You can see it's plain. It doesn't have any, like H1 has specific size and all that stuff, right? Div doesn't have that. It's a plain tag that does pretty much nothing. It just, it doesn't apply any other style. So you can either create something like, use a, a tag for specific purpose. Let's say if you want the big fonts, then you can use H1, and I think it goes up to H6. So let's look at what H6 looks like. Oh, look at that. It's a tiny tag, but it's still different. It still has a style, like it's bolder, right? And then look at this guy, right? Doesn't have, there is a general purpose tag. Um, so so different tags have different meanings, right? In HTML, usually you have you start a tag, opening tag, you have a content, and then you have a closing tag, right? So it's basically H1 between these brackets, then some content, right? And then the end closing has an extra slash, right? But if there is no opening, if you don't have any closing, you can actually some tags like input, for example. I can do input like this, which is an input box, but I can also don't have closing tag. I can just do this because there is no content in between, right? So I can also use this way. So if there's no closing tag, you can just put slash after it, and it's the same thing. Okay. Now let's look at styling. So let's take H1 tag for now. And I need to style this, which means I can add borders. I can do a lot of different things. Okay. As I said, you can do something directly in the script. I can say style here and, add color, right? Like this. But instead of that, I should be able to do using classes, right? I'm just going to add a class. So I'm going to call it class. In React, we use class name, but here just use class. We're going to call this H1 class. Okay. So how do you use it in CSS? In CSS, yeah, you can use class and ID, and I'll explain you the difference. Class is general purpose, which means once you define it, you can use it anywhere, and it applies everywhere, right? So in CSS, if I want to use this, define this class, what I would do is classes are always dot and the name of the class. So this one is what, H1 class, right? And then curly brackets. And within that, you can put all the styles. So I can say color. Color is a font color, basically. And then dot, colon. And then you put the color, red color, and then semicolon, right? And when I run this, it applies a red, right? If it's a blue, then, it will make it blue, right? For font, not font size. Let's say let's add border. Border. You would have three components, always three components. You have a border color. So the first is a border color, or you can just do this border color red. I think this works as well. No, maybe I'm wrong. Border. What I usually do is just color, then you have to space the size, which is in pixels, let's say 1 pixels, and then solid means it's a solid line. Okay. If I want to dot it, I can put dotted, and then you can see it's a dotted line. Let's look at the some resources on this one. Um, let's say HTML border style. So border. Okay, so there are so many different things in a border, right? So you have a border color. So yeah, I thought I applied that. I don't know why it did not take it. So you have a border color, which is, let's say, name the color, or you can use different, then border size, I think. Border size. Is there a border size? Okay, border. You see it's a 5 pixel solid red. Okay, border color, border width, and border style. Okay, border color, width, and style, right? So this is color, this is width, and this is style, right? So I can actually separate them. Border color, I don't know why it didn't work before. Red, border width is, say, 1 pixel, border style is dotted. And I'm just going to remove this. And it does the same thing. And I think there's another one, border style. Let's see. There are different kind of, dotted, dashed. Oh, these are all this stuff, right? So let me share this. You can actually play around with it. So I can use dash, solid, just a solid line. Double actually adds a double line. And then there are so many ridged and I don't know. I've never actually used ridge. Let's look at it, ridge. There's some that you never use. Okay. I don't know how it different. Um, double, actually, I think it adds double the line. Nope. I think some of them are probably also deprecated, which means it doesn't. Let's look at an example. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, I'm going to share this with as well. You can play with it. So if I say solid, and then play, oh, what happened? What kind of, this is dashed. Okay, this is dashed. I thought I use, oh, right here, you can see it's a solid, then dotted is dotted. This is dashed. This is inset. Inset is like, it's like a groove inside, right? Outset is, it's the opposite of that. I don't know what the ridge is. It's like a frame, I think. Double. Oh yeah, you can see double. I don't know why it didn't apply here. In here, double. Maybe it's just too small to see. No. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know why double didn't apply. Oh, I need to give a higher, say 5 pixel. Okay. Oh, then I can see. Okay, that's strange. I never use double. Uh, Mostly I would use solid. It's pretty standard, right? So just play around with it. Um, None means don't apply it. You know, um, yeah. So but I usually do it in one line, which makes much more sense. I would say border, then whatever the color is, red, then number of pixels, and then type style, right? Again, you don't have to remember all of this. Just as you go, you will, you know. And yeah, there is a border radius, which is interesting. So the border radius, it's kind of, you see the corners, it kind of makes it a curved corners. So if I get, let's say 5 pixel and then run this, you see it has a curvy right here. It's hard to see. Maybe if I increase it to 15, then you would see more. Yeah, you see? So there are a lot more options there, right? So W3 School has tons of stuff. You can just play around with it. All of this, right? This is all border. Um, and then there's flex will go through. Don't worry about the flex. Then the font size, font style, which is interesting. I can make it italic, right? So if I just to copy this and then make it italic, right? So it's italic now. Um, I don't know what the oblique is. I've never used it. Okay, looks like italic. I don't know. So I would just say, uh, copy a lot of these things. You can make it bold. Font weight is bold. You can just copy from here into your class, right? And then see what it does. I think by default, H1 tags are bold. So that's why it doesn't change anything, right? Um, a lot of things not gonna change anything. Line spacing, letter spacing. So each letter, for example, like H1 tag, there is a space in between, right? Here. So if I want to increase a space, I can use letter spacing. So letter spacing. And then let's make it very big, 13 pixels. You see, you can change it if you want to. You must be like, why would I ever change it? Uh, so when you actually get different fonts, you can use those fonts to um, every font has a specific letter spacing. I mean, obviously now we're never going to change to 13 pixel because that's a lot, but depends on a font, you can change it. So that's that. What else? Any questions? I would definitely suggest, go and check out a lot of these things. Let me give you a list of things that you can check it out. Okay, you don't have to check out everything, but let's go through it. So don't worry about the animation. You can do background color. Let's just look at it. Background color, right? Okay. Well, pink or something is. All right. That's a good one. Then you can look at don't worry, the position. Then, we already looked at borders. You don't have to, you know, do everything in a border. Um, we looked at the border style and all that stuff, right? So um, don't worry about the box shadowing. Color is the font color we already looked at. Don't worry about the color. Oh, cursor. This is also important. What is a cursor? Cursor is, let's take this one. Cursor copy. Cursor is like when you hover over something, right? So if I hover over this text, uh, you see it says plus, it automatically adds plus sign, right? Which is copy. But usually if I want user to click, then I think pointer is a click. You can check out other stuff, right? So if it's a button, then you want to put a pointer, right? For text, you don't want to you don't want to change it, but you see this little hand comes in, which means it's a click. So if it was like a button, for example, button, let's say click me. How about you guys add this? In the button, let's add a class, whatever name you want to use. It doesn't matter. Just follow some standard from here. And then make the cursor as a pointer so that when I hover over that button, it has this hand. All right. Were you able to do it? Just add. You can add a class, or there are other ways to do it as well. But you can add a class to it and add it. All right, good. Um, so yeah, you can either add a class, which is whatever class you want to add, my button or something. I'm just coming with some random, and then you would say my button, right? And then here you would say cursor pointer, right? And then you can see the hand comes out, right? If I change it to copy, run it, you see the plus sign comes out. But but you know, uh, you always want this cursor equal to pointer for all the buttons, right? Because buttons are there for click. So what I usually do is just, you can directly, instead of class, you can just use a tag. So I can just use button. So I don't need to do this, right? Which means add pointer to every single button, right? So it doesn't matter which button you use, you will always have a pointer, right? So I can see pointer here, pointer here. So that's how it works. And the cool thing about class is, it doesn't matter which tag it is. Let's say if I create a div tag, right? Um, and then I can use the same class, the h1 class here, right? And then you can see the h1 is this h1 class is applied to h1. So it adds h1's all its native properties, right? H1 supposed to be a big font. And if I apply this class, which I added, which has a blue color and all that stuff, it applies to div as well, but it looks a little different, right? It's because it applied all of these properties except h1 has its own things, right? So that's there. You can actually combine them. So let's look at some interesting stuff now. Classes are pretty cool. So what you can do is, let's say, okay, so the one question I think Rahim asked was buttons, right? So let's do this. So I have a button. I'm going to call it button 1. One of the cool thing is here is all I have to do is say button and then press tab, and then it just so I don't have to like do open and close. And I can say button 1, and then I will do another one, tab, button 2. Okay, so I want both of these buttons to have cursor pointer, right? Because button's supposed to have it. So what I'll do is I would say button, because it's not a class, it's a tag, right? So when you do tag, you don't put dot because it's not a class. And then I would say cursor pointer, right? So this way, when I hover over them, they both have now pointer, because I want this apply to both buttons, all buttons basically, right? But then I want one button to be blue and one button to be red of color, right? So what I would do is I would create two classes, red and blue. Okay, and you can name whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And I would just say color red, color blue. Okay. Yes, a button is always on a pointer, even if you don't apply it. But I'm just giving giving an example. That's a good point. So I would do red. Okay, class equal to red, class equal to blue. Let's say this is a different kind of button. Let's say if I want to do a copy, for example, right? In that case, it would work. Because some button I want to do add or something, right? When I click on it. So now I have two buttons. One is red, one is blue, right? But they both have this copy. So this applies to both, but this one applies to red and this one applies to blue. Now I want the same background color for both buttons, right? But then I have a third button, which I want this to have a copy, but I don't want any other style. I don't want to change its background, for example. So I have a third button here. Let's add 3 here. So I have a third button. The third button, I don't want any style change. The only thing I want this to be cursors to be copied, so all 3 have the same, cursor. But I first 2 buttons, I want to let's say change the background to white. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create a class called, bg white. And then I would say background color white. Okay. And then I'll apply this to both of these buttons. So it has already a class red, but I can actually put space and then put bg white, which means it will take red and bg white, blue and bg white. So I'm combining now with different, I'm using this class to apply whatever I want, right? So the first button has a red class, which means it has going to have a red color, and then bg white, which means it's going to have a white background. So you can see this here. The second one has a blue color and then the white background. And the third one doesn't have any styles, right? So never apply just style on a button unless you want all the button to have it, right? Always create classes which are generic, right? So, and you can have as many as class you want. You can add many different classes here. So using those combination of it, you can create, unique, unique things. Any questions on it? Okay, so let's apply border radius. Just gonna type it in here. Border radius to only button 2 and 1. Oh, a button 2 and button 3. Border radius of let's say 10 pixels. Oh, 5 pixels, let's say. Right? I want 2 and 3. I want border radius of 5 pixel. You can refer to the the border radius. You should find it here in this source, right? You have to probably create a class called border radius 5 or something like that, and you apply that. Which one? Oh, this one? Okay. I will just put this 3 buttons over here. So this is so you don't have to type in. All right. So these are 3 buttons, and these are the classes that you have for now. Actually, CSS is a lot of fun. There are actually jobs specific to CSS, if you don't know. I had a friend who didn't have any degrees, but he worked as a CSS engineer. All he did was this. Okay, if you master this, you can have a job, and it's a usually high-paying job as well. You probably need some design background with it, because you need to understand the design and all that stuff, right? So, but yeah, you can by knowing the by knowing the CSS, you can use this knowledge, but you need to be really strong at it. There is a lot more to learn in CSS, beyond what I'm showing you, right? We'll learn flex layout next time, which which allows you to arrange stuff really nicely, which is also CSS. Let me know once you're done. Yeah. Let me change the radius of the button 3. No, there's no limit to how many classes you have. You just have to put a space in it. So let's say if I have 2 classes, and if I want to add another one, let's say if I call it, uh, you know, uh, border radius, something like this, right? Um, then, all I have to just put space and then do it. Sometimes if you have a small, like 5, change this instead of 5 pixel, change it to 15 to see it, because 5, sometimes it's very hard to see. Okay, so change it to 15 and see if it shows up. Yeah, there is no limit to how many classes you have. Actually, I haven't, I have used at least 15 or 15 classes. Usually you don't want that many classes because, but actually there are actually interesting UI frameworks. Let me show you. Um, Nowadays that are really pretty interesting. Let me see which one there are. Yeah, that's a spacing issue. Yeah. Tailwind. So Tailwind is a CSS framework, and it's pretty interesting. Okay, you see, I'm gonna share this with you guys. It's pretty impressive how it's done. You see how this guy is typing here? And then as he types, this is changing. See, it's adding it's nothing but classes here. Okay. That's pretty neat. And so you must be wondering, what are these classes, right? MD, Flex, and all of this stuff. So you know how we are creating our own classes and we're just naming them. So here I've called it like red and big white and all that stuff, right? What they have done is they have defined a library of classes that does certain things, right? And then all you have to do is just use these classes, because each class does one thing. So um, let's say font medium, it adds a medium font, right? Let's see if I do large. I don't know. This is not changeable. This is a video. But if I change this to large, it changed for this paragraph to large font, right? Um, let's say this Sarah, this name, right? If you look at it, it has Sky 500. Um, I think that's a type of the text with um, with the color and everything. Again, you have to remember all this, and it's a pretty extensive list of classes. This is, you know, um, Slate 700. So a lot of them you know like this one, like it's a rounded corner here, border radius. So you can probably like rounded full. It has some meaning. Rounded full, has specific meaning, right? This is for image. Um, this is for the rounded Excel that has specific meaning, right? Um, So yeah, this is really, really nice. So let me show you the documentation on this one. I just wanted to show you the classes that they have. Well, they're actually selling stuff as well. And where is the? Yeah, so like these are the somewhere there. I mean, they have changed it quite a bit. Let me see if there's a documentation here somewhere. Docs. Configuration, themes, colors. Yes, you can see. These are the color like slate 500, slate 100. So you just have to just use one of these, right? So you don't have to define your own classes. You just use one of these. Spacing, you can say, um, you know, different classes. And yeah, it's pretty neat. Anyway, so this was, off topic, but I just wanted to show you how the classes are being used. Okay. Yeah, there's a Bootstrap as well, but I think Bootstrap is, Bootstrap is pretty old, I would say. This Tailwind is pretty new. So there is a Bootstrap CSS. Right, this is Bootstrap. It's basically a grid system. So we're gonna look at the Flex next time. So this is before the Flex was invented. They were using a lot of Bootstrap. So, uh, but now you know it's you can use Flex directly, and you can see they're using classes, right? So if I want to build something like this, right, a lot of columns, then it's using, and you can see how it's divided everything into equally, right? And this is, you can see in Bootstrap, there are 12 columns, right? So let's say if I want to use first one with 8 and next one with 4, I would just say column MD8, column MD4. So this class is 8, which means this is going to occupy 8 blocks. This one occupies 4 blocks. Here, each of them occupies 1 block, right? Column MD1, which means 1 block. The 12 blocks. This is 4, 4, 4. That's 12, 6, 6, 12. So you can build a combination. And he's got a lot of other things, right? I think originally this was invented by Twitter, and they published it as an open source library. And then there are lots of other ones as well. Tailwind is pretty popular these days because of it's new and it's unique. But yeah, we'll look at a little bit more CSS next time where we do the flex, and I think that would give us ability, to build, some CSS, because if you know classes and there's some ID as well, but once you build all of that, yeah, Tailwind is also open source. Yeah, you can use it. If you can memorize all the classes of Tailwind, you just don't have to build your own at all, right? You just have like tons of classes in a single line. Says, I want 5 pixel, this background color, this, and your your element looks pretty nice, right? As you saw in that video that they showed, which was pretty impressive. Tailwind, right? Which was pretty impressive that, they started this and then they're just writing this stuff to make it look pretty good and center stuff, and you can see. So, yep. Any questions? To use it, there is a way to use it. We can use it in our project as well. I'll show you if you want to use Tailwind in our React project, right? It's pretty simple. And yeah, we can, I'll show you how to use it. This way, you don't have to build your own classes. You can just use. But remember, you need to know some of these classes. So, or you can use some of the examples that they have provided here as well. I think Tailwind, yeah, I think they provide some for free, and also they have you can ask, you know, they can. So let's say if I want to build something like this, where is that browse components? I think they probably made some of them paid. If you want to use a built-in component, I think it looks like it. Live preview. So like, yeah, if you want to build a page like a UI like this, right? Where there's a web page with this header and all that stuff, right? Nice. I just have to look at this code. I can just copy paste this and I have a nice header, right? So that's nice. Right? You can build a pagination. You can build, so many other stuff. Like, why invent the wheel when you already know? Like, if I want to build a login page, I can just copy paste this code. So pretty much anything that you want to build, it's already available to you, right? So, but you need to understand the basic concept of some CSS stuff. Yeah. All right. Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Any question before we leave? I'll put some homework for you guys on CSS, and then next time we'll do Flex, and then we'll continue with React. So you got some flavor of React. We'll do more React, but also think about the project you want to build now that you have some idea of how React works. Okay. Okay, cool. I'll see you guys next time then. Have a good week and then good weekend.